HOAs are so fascinating, and I want to be conscious of your time. We appreciate. I mean, you've already been so generous, so I appreciate it. I one last thing I'd like to hear from you, just in general, the future for HOAs. What's going on behind the scenes as in the HOA world that the public isn't even really like focusing on yet? That you think is either going to be a big change or the market's going to move in a particular direction with HOAs. I mean, just something in the background that maybe we should start having a conversation about in general. Anything like that going on?
Well, there's always something going on, Justin. Do you have something in mind particularly? I mean, we deal a lot with animals. What animals are allowed in a community. As you know, there are lots of cases. There's a case that decided a Nigerian dwarf goat was a household pet. Um, there are cases that basically say if you want to prohibit animals or numbers of animals or certain animals, you have to be very explicit in the declaration as to specifically what those are. You can't use vague terms like household pets, because what you might consider a household pet is not what I consider a household pet. Smoking restrictions, the short-term rental restrictions. I mean, there are certain areas that we're seeing a lot of movement. There are lots of people, of course, who are wanting solar panels or solar energy type devices in the community. And so again, there are lots of things we are seeing. We aren't seeing some of the changes that they're seeing out west, for instance, where people are ripping up all their yards and putting in rocks, which is called xeriscaping. So as the climate changes, as the world changes, one of the nice things is with these associations, the statutes are malleable enough, and because the members get to decide by a supermajority what they want, it tends to be, like you said earlier, it tends to be very market driven. That if this association wants to allow this, or if that association wants to prohibit that, they generally can do that, and it doesn't matter that everybody else is not doing the same thing.
I wrote down Nigerian dwarf goat, by the way. I might sub out chickens for that. I'll come back to that and get that case reference from you later. And solar panels we could probably spend an hour talking about solar, right? And if especially when we're talking about green efficiencies, when we're talking about climate change, the people that want to advocate on that level.
Political signs.
And if North Carolina,
I'll mention that's another one we're dealing with right now is political signs. You know, why can't I put up 30 political signs in my yard? And there's a statute that deals with how many signs, and then you have to look to the governing documents. But that's another hot button issue right now.
And if North Carolina ever passes let's say a tax credit for xeriscaping, we'll probably see that like California does. I've got some family out there, and having to do with water and all that kind of, that's a whole nother level as well. So I guess one last thing then to get specific, as the population continues to increase in North Carolina, right? People moving from other states. Is there something that people are just consistently shocked by when they come to North Carolina? Is it the sheer number of associations? What is it that out-of-staters who are becoming North Carolinians, what do you think they're most surprised by when it comes to HOAs when they get here?
Well, a couple of things in no particular order. I think most people would be surprised if you start driving west and go to the mountains. What only a few years ago was open land or individual houses, as you know, if you've traveled in Western North Carolina, it is just shocking to me how many associations there are in every single direction now. And of course, it's the same around Charlotte. I'm from Kannapolis. Monroe, Kannapolis, Cornelius. Oh my goodness. I mean, the number of associations is just shocking. And the same thing is happening in Eastern North Carolina, all around Wilmington and Brunswick County and the other communities. So one thing is that these associations aren't going anywhere. The second thing that usually surprises people, but it depends on where they come in from, lots of transplants from Florida or California or other states tend to be shocked at how few statutes we have. And that's a good thing. In other words, I'd say the General Assembly has done a wonderful job of crafting statutes that both set defaults, but then they give a good bit of control to the association members to decide what they want their particular association to be like. It will not surprise you, since you mentioned you have relatives in California, that in some other states, there are just lots and lots and lots of laws that get into minutia that would probably drive most people crazy. And that has not happened here. And that's a positive, actually, I'd say, in the real estate world.